What is the biggest single mistake that I, and probably many of you, keep on making, no matter how hard we try, especially if we have far too many trees? And I know a lot of you have said to me, Zav, cull down your trees, and then that mistake will stop happening. Well, if you want to hear what that common mistake is, and how I hope to try and rectify it, then keep watching. But truthfully, today is going to be a short species guide on the Cedrus Deodara, or the Himalayan Cedar. Absolutely wonderful specimen for bonsai, but just take this point in hand. It's how I deal with it. There are many people who deal with it differently, and that's what the comments are going to be for. When you see me say something, you go, Zav, that's absolute rubbish. Put it down in the comments. I don't mind. Sharing a pool of information about how we can get the best from these trees is what this little video is all about. In fact, if you want to see more of my bonsai species guides, have a look for the playlist, but that's in the description. Anyway, you want to hear about that number one mistake? Well, you'll have to wait till you've heard more about our Himalayan cedar. Hiya, it's Xavier, and welcome to this short species guide for the Himalayan cedar, or Cedrus Deodara. It fits firmly within that Cedrus range or cedar range of trees. I find it an absolutely fascinating species. I think it's an evergreen conifer, and there's quite a number of things you can do through the year. But the first thing I'm going to tell you before I go any further is keep watching, because there's going to be loads of information. No, seriously, they can be a bit moody, a bit like me. They can definitely sulk if you treat them poorly. And what I'm going to do is briefly take you through the broad range of things you need to know if you want to have success with Cedrus, particularly Deodara, as a bonsai. So if that's going to appeal to you, keep watching, because the first thing we're going to talk about is Repot. So yeah, blow me timbers, all of you are thinking, Repot, we must be starting the calendar in spring. Well, no, you're wrong. If you're in the UK or that hemisphere, I count north or south, I don't know, of course it's northern hemisphere, then we do our repots for these in the late summer, early autumn, which for me is going to be September, pretty well through September. The soil they're like a really free draining soil mix, which for me would be the likes of pumice, zeolite, I put a bit of vermiculite in there, and generally it's got a nice free graining texture, and I haven't had any problems with that with any of my repots that like this sort of soil. Also put a bit of the Oceana root feed in there, and some activated charcoal, which again benefits the root development. So that's the stuff I'll use. Big thing to know, they don't like to be mucked about. So I'll find with a developing species, which I've had for, I don't know, from nursery for 7-8 years, then you know you're not looking at repotting every probably 4, even up to 5 years. I think the one you saw at the beginning is coming up for, I think it's coming up for year 5. And the other thing I'd say is a bit like you do with your pines, don't remove all the soil. Do it over successive repots, which for something like this could take many, many years. If I was going to pick a figure, well, you'll see probably from the overlay, I tend not to take more than 30-40% of the soil away. I'm very, very careful with them, because I don't want it to sulk on me. I want it to thrive and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
So we've talked about repot, we've talked about the soil. Where does it like to be conditions wise? It likes to be kept, one, relatively dry, so like your Japanese white pine, certainly give it a good watering, but then let the soil dry out. Don't leave it bone dry, but it definitely likes to be kept on the dry side, so certainly don't let it sit in water or anything like that. And if you see water pooling at the top, then definitely that's another trigger that you need to do something with those roots, because they will rot. For the UK, full sun, absolutely perfect. I keep it in the central part of the garden. If there's any sun about, it will get it. If you get really extreme temperatures, the sort of, dare I say, 34, 35, something we're really not used to here, then yeah, protect it from that. I think most of our trees get a little bit heat stroke if you put them in those sort of conditions. So yeah, not the extreme heats, but this is a pretty hardy sort of tree to warm, sunny weather. So I'm quite happy to keep it in a sunny part of the garden. As for pruning these, straightforward. They're an elongating species, so as soon as those buds start swelling out and you get this long elongating growth, you can prune back to your selected next bud point. So we've got points there and there, so I've got a plan in this one where I actually want a little bit of longer growth on this side, so I'm just gonna shoot there, shoots there. I'm just going to prune back to there, and this sort of pruning, so you can go right through the growing season, probably until just around about this period. Only other sort of pruning, when would I do my really hard structural pruning? Believe it or not, when we start heading into early autumn, so probably another 2 or 3 weeks time, where if I've got some major branch defects, example might be right here, there's wire on at the moment, but I've got a big heavier branch. I actually want the growth up here. I could actually remove that. So I'm also working on bits and pieces up there. So yeah, all my heavy structural sort of branch pruning, that will be done in the early autumn. I could still also do it now. Basically what you're looking for is when the final flushes have stopped pushing out. Then the other thing you're probably interested in is the rain that's falling on my head. I need to get the camera indoors quickly. Pests diseases. Believe it or not, these are fantastic. In the 5 or 6 years I've had them, nothing. And when I look on the research, nothing. So it's all good for pests. And I'm going in now because it's raining and I rust.
Heavy rains will continue into the night with destructive winds.
Well, that was a long, long rainstorm. It's been 5 months since I left the outdoors because of that rainstorm, and a lot's happened, including yet another terrible, terrible blunder on my part. But first of all, should we have a look and see how these very, very slow growing trees have actually progressed? Because now I thought we'll talk a little bit about wiring and when I do it. Yeah, wiring for these. Now I said to you probably earlier on, they're quite a slow grower, but don't forget, when they're still young plants they might grow a bit faster, especially if you've got them well fertilised. No fear of that in my garden. But this one, I put the wire on. Well, wire's been on for well over 6-7 months. You know, I wasn't particularly concerned, and when you look in close you can see clearly that there's no particular wire bite or anything like that, and in fact I'm more than happy that I can leave that wire as it is for at least another 3 or 4 months and probably have a look at it in the late spring. And in terms of when I'd wire, because it's such a slow grower, I tend to wire it when I'm pruning it. So it could be, I think this one I did the wiring in the early to mid-summer. But as we're going through to the latter stage of winter, or indeed the early part of winter, again, optimum times to wire these. One caveat, and now's the time for me to go, I've done it again. And in fact, I know the last time that I raised this this subject, everyone thought it was a bit of a clickbait title, because it was all about my maples and the trouble with that dreaded wire bite. Wire bite isn't the fault of the tree, it isn't even the fault of the wire. It's the fault of me, or you, when we forget. And I kept going on and on about the fact that these are slow growers. Well, they are, unless they're still young and thrusting and the branches are quite slim. I completely forgot about this, and I'm devastated, to be honest, I really am. Although the specimen has such a long way to go, and that's probably the saving grace. All around in close, I can see right in by the junctions, which is where you've always got to look. There is the sign that the wire has gone into the depth of the wire. Now, it's only 1mm wire, but truthfully, with something like this, with the Deodara, it'll be on there. It's like if you look at a beech or even a Japanese maple, those wire scars, even if they heal over flat, you can still see the line where the wire was. So I've really mucked up big here, and I think this is an ideal opportunity for me to remind you, you must keep track of when you put your wire on. And the more trees you've got, the harder it gets. And for those of you who watch my channel for any length of time, you know that I should have a foolproof solution, and I do, and truthfully it works out most times, and that's my bonsai database, and I offer it out freely to people if they send me an email. There's a playlist about it, and it's basically something that my daughter put together out of Access using Microsoft Office Access 2016, something like that. And it's now over 5 years since I've been using it, and I've had no problems with it. It's gone out to well over 50 people around the world, and generally it's great. And what I do is whenever I wire a tree, I update that tree on my database. I then put it down into the monthly bring up reminders, and in fact I'll be printing one of those off for March very shortly, and that will show me all the trees that I want a reminder about the wire. So lots of things. Have a look in the description if you're interested in a free way of both managing your bonsai and also getting good bring up reminders. Anyway, I'm going to need to get that wire off. But you don't need to watch that, do you? You'll see, probably looking there, there's some areas here and around here which is particularly deep. But I think the thing I'm going to say to you is that when I pulled it off, I was careful, going in the direction that it was put on, and I went out of my way to make sure I didn't actually rip the cambium layer. So there's no wounds or anything that I need to worry about, and no signs that obviously infection will get in. And well, thankfully, when I look about where the tree's going to go, a lot of that scarring probably won't be so obvious. You're probably looking at that going, that's an absolute mess for styling, and if you want to see what my thought processes are on this, then I've got a perfect video for you, which I'll talk about at the end actually. But if you can't wait, go to the description or up there and you'll see it. Wiring, do it now. If you've got an older, more mature specimen, truthfully, you can leave that wire on for a very long time. Again, it can be a bit like junipers. So that's probably my warning about wire. Just be careful. Make a note somewhere, however it is. So what else? Pruning, we've talked about that. Propagation. Hate propagation with things like this. I actually looked online because I've never done any propagating, and I saw a couple of videos and certainly a couple of references in Bonsai Empire that suggest they're not the easiest to do with air layers, they're not the easiest to do with cuttings, and in reality you're looking at stratification of seeds and stuff like that. A bit like larch, I think. You can take the tips off when you do your pruning, or would you do with a juniper, poke it in some potting soil and let it go like you would with your juniper or with your larch cutting. And if it's anything like larch, then the success is about 1 in every 100. So yeah, so by all means have a go when you do your pruning, but I think this is definitely a you buy it as a sapling or you do your seed work on it. So really I think we've pretty well covered, from my point of view, what I wanted to talk about with these brilliant Cedrus Deodara. Again, there's a number of other different varieties. I think there's Lebanese and Atlantica. In fact, again, I've got an excellent video about that. But yeah, there's 3 or 4 different varieties of these cedars. Ugly inverse taper right at the bottom. That would suggest it's a graft. And actually, if you have a look, let's get in close. Hadn't noticed this before. This one has actually been grafted. I've got no idea what the rooting stock is. In fact, anyone who does know how they do this, put down in the comments which one you think it's been grafted on. Do you know what? It's quite obvious, really. In fact, let's have a look at the other one. And again, it quickly becomes quite apparent when you see a great big lump there that actually the graft looks like it's down here. So interesting. We'll look at this one, and you know I like this one. Again, if you look in, I don't know with this one whether it's the crumbling bark. Harder to tell with this. I don't think so, but that's not to say it isn't. From people's knowledge, are these normally grafted stock material? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little look at Cedrus Deodara and Cedrus really in general. Absolutely wonderful species to work with, one I've come to quite late. Again, as I say, if there's anything you feel I've missed that you think other people might benefit from, whack that down in the comments. And clearly, if you've got this far and enjoyed it, I would ask for a big like. But yeah, really like this one. And probably the video you really want to see now, because you've seen those 3, is that one there. It's brilliant. Anyway, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.